Hello, this is Bunton with your Visual Functional Mathematics at Level 2, Section 1, Numbers. Today's lesson is Lesson 6 on fractions, decimals, percentages, and ratios. Before we start, I just want to remind you that these three topics, fraction, decimal, and percentages, they are all important, but the central unit you need to master is decimals, because to translate fraction into percentage you have to use decimals. Likewise, to change from percentages to fraction you have to use decimals. So decimals is very important, and it makes it simpler and easier to do your calculations. So here goes. Fractions, decimals, percentages, and ratio. You will learn that fractions and decimals are all the same. You'll learn how to convert fractions into decimals, how to change decimals into fractions, how to switch between fractions and decimals, how to compare fractions, decimals, and percentages, that ratios compare one part to another, how to answer questions involving ratios, and how to work out total amounts. It seems a lot, but we'll be over in a minute. I've included ratio in this lesson because I believe it is related to decimals and fractions, because when you're talking about ratios, you're talking about parts. The keywords you need to be familiar with, which I'm sure you know most of, are fractions, decimals, percentages, compare, convert, ratio, and parts. They're all within the context of the topic we're dealing with. Fractions, decimals, and percentages are all the same. The following fractions, decimals, and percentages all mean the same thing. In other words, the fraction, the decimal part, the percentages part are the same in terms of measuring. So, half is the same as 0.5, which is the same as 50. A quarter is the same as 0.25, which is the same as 25%. 3/4 is the same as 0.75, which is the same as 75%. 1/5 is the same as 0.2, which is the same as 20%. 1/10 is the same as 0.1, which is the same as 10%. 1/1 is the same as 1, which is the same as 100%. You see how they're related? Try to understand these things by heart, just like you learned your multiplication table. Because when you're working with these units, you have to be able to multiply and divide. They're all related. You can change fractions into decimals. To convert a fraction into a decimal, you should divide the top number and the fraction by the bottom number. Remember, I told you a fraction is a division sum. Example 1. What is 9/16 as a decimal? Divide 9 by 16. That's it. So 9 divided by 16 is equal to 0.5625, if you can use your calculator for that. Example 2, you don't need your calculator for this one. What is 3/10 as a decimal? You divide 3 by 10 and you'll have 0.3. Example 3 of changing fractions into decimals. Use this method for trickier fractions when you don't have a calculator. First, multiply the top number by 10. Why do you think that is? Because you want to make it into a whole number so it will be easy to work with. But remember, when you finish your calculation, divide by 10 again. Look at example 3. What is 4/5 as a decimal? Multiply the top number by 10 and then divide the bottom number by 5. So 4 times 10 is 40, and then 40 divided by 5 is 8. But you cannot leave it as 8 whole number. Why? Because 4/5 is not a whole number, it's less than 1. So divide again by 10 and then that will convert it into a decimal. To change a decimal into fraction, you need to do the following. Change the decimal to a whole number by multiplying by 10, 100 or 1000 as the case might be. Write this number as the top number of the fraction. Write the number you multiplied by as the bottom number. Then simplify using equivalent fraction. Let's look at an example. What is 0.64 written as a fraction? Give your answer in its simplest form. First of all, multiply the decimal by 100. Why? Because 0.64 is 2 decimal places, which is 0.64 over 100. So 0.64 times 100 is 64. Then write the result as the top number. The bottom number is 100. So 0.64 is 64 over 100. And then you change it into equivalent fraction by dividing the top and the bottom to bring it to its simplest form, which is divide 64 by 4, divide 100 by 4, and you have 16/25. Practice question set 1. What is 3/4 as a decimal? Question 1a. B. 0.55 as fraction. Try to do them without using your calculators, please. Question 2. What is A. 0.625 as a fraction? B. 27/45 as a decimal. And then C. Microns 15/16 of a mile. What is this as a decimal? All of these things you need to be able to make these conversions in real life when you get out there into the workplace or anything in your home. Answers to practice questions set 1. Question 1, A. 0.75, B. 11/20. Question 2, A. 5/8, B. 0.6. And question 3, 0.9375. You can convert between fractions and percentages. To change a fraction into a percent, first change the fraction into a decimal. Remember I told you about decimal? Then multiply by 100 and add the percentage sign to it when you've finished. Example 1. What is 2/5 as a percentage? Try to do it without a calculator. Change the fraction into a decimal. Use 2 divided by 5, which is 0.4. Then multiply by 100, which is 0.4 times 100 is 40. So you add your percentage sign, it will be 40%. To change a fraction into a percentage, let's look at example 2 and see whether we can follow the examples of example 1. 28 out of 448 people surveyed are in favor of the closure of a local swimming pool. What percentage is this? That is, what percentage is 28 out of 448? First of all, write the number in favor as a fraction of the people surveyed, which is 28 out of 448. Secondly, change the fraction into a decimal. Okay, so 28 divided by 448 is 0.0625. Multiply by 100. So 0.0625 times 100 is equal to 6.25. Then add your percentage sign, so it's 6.25%. Example 3. What is 85% as a fraction? Try not to use your calculator. First, write the percentage on the top and 100 on the bottom. So 85% is the same as 85 over 100. And then you change it into equivalent fraction by dividing the top and the bottom until you get to the lowest possible state. So 85 divided by 5 is 17, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. And that's your answer. To change a percentage into a fraction, example 4. 36% of a bar of white chocolate is cocoa. What is this as a fraction of the other ingredients? In other words, write the percentage on the top and 100 on the bottom. So 36 is the same as 36 over 100. And then of course you can bring it to its lowest form. Divide 36 by 4, you'll have 9. Divide 100 by 4, you'll have 25. So 9/25. Practice question set 3. 1. What is 108 over 360 as a percentage? 2. What is 92% as a fraction? And then 3. What is 236 over 400 as a decimal, B, a percentage? And then question 4. A bank carries out a survey into customer satisfaction. It finds that 250 out of 2,000 customers are unhappy with the bank's service. What percentage is this? And these are your answer. Question 1, 30%. Question 2, 23/25. Question 3, A, 0.59, B, 59%. And then question 4, 12.5%. Now let's compare fraction, percentage and decimals. You need to be able to compare fractions, percentage and decimals, and you need to learn how to do them. Decimal plays a very, very important role in this exercise. Example 1. Which is greater, 0.44 or 7/20th? What would you do? You need to write out what 7/20th is as a decimal. So you divide. 7 divided by 20 is 0.35. Now it's in a state where you can compare the two. So 0.35 is smaller than 0.44. Therefore, 0.44 is greater, to answer your question. Example 2. Put these in order from smallest to largest. 0.56, 49%, and 5/8. You need to make them all into the same state. So the best way to do that is to make them all into what? A decimal. Right? So 49% is equal to 49 divided by 100, which is 0.49. 5/8 is a division sum. Just divide it and you'll have 0.625. So you can compare. Right? But remember, once you've got all your answers, they're all in the same state, make sure you use the original form they were in when you're writing your answer. That is, the order is 49%, 0.56, and 5/8 in that order, in ascending order. Example 3. Niam is looking at the offers on ready meal in the supermarket. Sausage supreme, normally £2.55, is now 2/3 of the original price. Spaghetti bolognese, normally £2, but the special offer is 18% off. Which meal worked out cheaper for Niam to buy? First, work out how much the sausage supreme will cost. So 2/3 of £2.55 is £1.70. Then work out how much the spaghetti bolognese will cost. That is 18% off, which is 100% minus 18%, and you'll have 82%. Convert that to a decimal, and then you can work your sum. 0.82 times £2 is 1.64. That way you can easily tell that 1.64 works out cheaper, which is the spaghetti. Practice question set 4. Circle the greater value in each pair. A. 0.04 or 16/15. B. 0.04 or 40%. C. 0.3 or 3%. And D. 5/8 or 67%. Lexcoms normally offer broadband at £26 per month and line rental at £19 per month. At the moment they're offering two deals. Deal 1, 28% off broadband. Deal 2, 2/5 off line rental. Which deal would save you the most money each month? Explain your answers. And those are your answers. Question 1A, 6/15. B, 40%. C, 0.3. And D, 67%. Question 2, deal 2. Why? Because £7.60 is a bigger saving than deal 1, which is just £7.28. Let's look at ratios now. Ratios are about comparing one part to another part, answering questions involving ratios, and also we will be working out total amounts. Comparing one part to another. Ratios are a way of showing how many things of one type are there compared to another. Example, a bathroom is decorated with 150 blue tiles and 180 white tiles. What is the ratio of the blue tiles to the white tiles? Write the relationship as a ratio. Blue 150, white 180. Then you simplify, and your answer at the bottom will be 5:6. Blue tile 5 to white tile 6. And by the way, just above that you will see the simplification. Okay? Right. You divide by 10 and then you divide by 5. Questions involving ratios. To answer a question involving ratios, you usually need to start by working out the value of one part. For example, the cost of one thing or the mass of one part. You can then use this to answer the question. Example 1. Orange cordial is diluted by adding 4 parts of water to every 1 part of cordial, that is 4:1. How many water should be added to 25 ml of cordial? The amount of cordial used is 1 part. So 1 part is 25 ml. You need 4 parts water to each part of cordial. So amount of water is 25 ml times 4, which is 100 ml. Okay, and then obviously the 5th part would be the orange cordial. Example 2. Some jam is made from 1 part sugar to 3 parts fruits, which is 1:3. 500 grams of jam is made. How much sugar is used? First, work out how many parts there are in total. So in this case, it's 1 part sugar to 3 parts fruit. So 1 plus 3 is 4 parts in total. And then secondly, The jam contains 1 part sugar, as I've explained already. To work out how many grams are in 1 part, divide the total amount of jam by the number of parts, which is 500 divided by 4, and that is equal to 125 grams. Example 3. 9,000 is split between 3 people in the ratio of 2 to 3 to 1. How much money does each person get? The proportion of investment they made or efforts they made, as the case might be. So let's look at what you have to do. First, work out how many parts are in the ratio. To do this, add up the numbers in the ratio, which is 2 plus 3 plus 1, which is 6 parts. Then find out how much 1 part is worth. So you divide 9,000 by 6, which is 1,500. The first person in the ratio gets 2 parts, so you multiply 1,500 by 2, which is 3,000. And then the second person gets 3 parts, so you multiply 1,500 by 3, which is 4,500. And the third person gets 1 part, which is 1,500. You can check your answers by adding the different proportion of money each person had. It should come up to 9,000 pounds. So in this case, 3,000 plus 4,500 plus 1,500 is equal to 9,000. So your calculation is correct. So you begin to apply your checks now, because ratio is a critical subject. Work out total amounts. You can use ratio to work out total amounts. You need to know the value of 1 part. You may have to work this out, or it might be given to you in a question. Then work out the total number of parts. You can then multiply the total number of parts by the value of 1 part to find the total amount. A jelly is made from 1 part gelatin and 4 parts water. 320 grams of water is used. How much jelly is made in total? First, find the value of 1 part by dividing the total amount of water by the number of parts of water, which is 320 divided by 4, and that is 80 grams. Then find the total number of parts by adding up the numbers in the ratio, which is 1 plus 4 equals 5. Now multiply the total number of parts by the amount given for 1 part. So that is 5 times 8, which is 400 grams. Practice questions, set 5. Oli is making salad dressing. He mixes 1 part vinegar, 2 parts oil, and Oli makes 450 ml of salad dressing. How much oil does he use? Question 2. A union votes on whether to go on a strike. 120 people vote. The ratio of yes to no votes is 2 to 3. A. How many people voted yes? How many people voted no? B. Question 3. Hamish is making buttercream icing. He makes 5 parts icing sugar to 3 parts butter. He uses 180 grams of icing sugar. How much butter will he need? Question 4. Dawn is mixing wallpaper paste. She mixes 3 parts of glue to 7 parts of water. Dawn uses 2.8 liters of water. How much wallpaper paste will she make in total? Question 5 is a typical level 2 question, so you have to do a little bit of thinking. And 5, George is a sheep farmer. His herd contains Hardwick sheep, hard-breeden sheep, and soy sheep in the ratio of 9 to 5 to 2. George has 180 Hardwick sheep. How many sheep does he have in total? And your answer to question set 5 as follows. Question 1, 300 mil. Question 2A, 48 mil. B, 72. Question 3, 111 grams. Question 4, 4 liters. And then question 5, 320. So to summarize, we know that we have covered the following area. We know that fractions and decimals are all the same. We know that percentages, fractions and decimals are also all the same. We know the methods of changing fractions into decimals and changing decimals into fractions. We can also compare fractions, decimals and percentages. We know that ratio is about comparing one part to another. We now understand and we know how to answer questions involving ratio. And finally, we know how to work out total amounts. And that's our lesson for today and for the week. Please make sure you attempt all the questions I've provided you with before you check the answers. Read through the video, listen to what I've explained to you, and then attempt the questions. If you get them all right, don't forget to celebrate. Pat yourself on the back. It's good to celebrate. If you didn't, it's no problem. We'll learn from our mistakes. Just make sure that we do the corrections and we learn from it. Until next week, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you.